Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Downtown Community Church podcast. Welcome to season 2 of Asking for a Friend. I'm your host, William Colley. I'm joined by your lead pastor, Benjamin Kaempfer.
Albert Benjamin Kaempfer, to be specific. Actually, Albert Benjamin Kaempfer II on my Florida State University graduation certificate. But how's it going, everybody? We're excited to be here for season number 2 and tell you a little bit about what's coming up.
Yeah, so, man, it's been a great start to the fall semester. And starting this Sunday, we're starting a new series called Change My Mind. And we decided to kind of do a midweek podcast along with this series. So, Ben, why don't you give us a quick little introduction on what this series is about and why we're doing it?
Yeah, so this series is going to be wonderful, or at least I think it's going to be wonderful. It's all about mental health, Jesus, the gospel, and the scriptures. And the reason we're talking about this, and specifically talk about mental health, is because when we say mental health, there's a couple of misconceptions. One, oftentimes people assume mental health is only mental illness. Mental illness is a component of the holistic population of mental health, but it's not specific to only mental illness. And so when we're talking about mental health, everybody has a mental health. Everybody has an emotional, a mental makeup. And there's an extraordinary interplay between your emotional mental health and your spiritual health. In other words, just as a quick example, it's really difficult to trust God when you're overrun by anxiety. It's really difficult oftentimes to progress forward to who God's called you to be unless you've dealt with stuff in your past. Now, we are going to be talking about some mental illnesses as well. We're going to be talking about depression, anxiety, some of the things that come along with that, worry, fear. We're going to be talking about, just misconceptions of eating disorders, body dysmorphia, all kinds of things like that. Because the truth is, at virtually every dinner table in our country, mental illness is present, if not continual, at least at some point. We all have a friend, we all have a family member, and so we also want to talk about how that works, how we look, and how we all just deal with this sense of, man, we as a people are just overwhelmed. We are anxious, we are stressed, we are busy, and the problem is it doesn't look like there's any stopping it. It's not going to get less busy. It's not going to get less responsibility filled. The implications of us being healthy are going to be there. So really excited to talk about it, and I'll kind of say this one last thing, and I'll let you ask more questions, is that the reason that we wanted to deal with this is because it's virtually an undealt with topic. The only time that we really deal with mental health is when we are acutely aware of our own mental illness. It is the only place or the only discipline or the only school of thought where we think the baseline with absolutely no attention and no maintenance is health. So cardiovascularly, we would never think, if I don't pay any attention to how much I exercise, how much I eat, what I put in my body, I'm going to be perfectly cardiovascularly healthy. We would never think, for our kids, right? If I don't put information, learning stuff in front of them, we would never think that if I don't pay attention to their intellectual development at all, then they're going to become intellectually healthy people. For some reason, spiritually especially, right? If I don't spend time paying attention to how I'm doing spiritually and feeding myself spiritually, I'm not going to grow. But for some reason, in terms of mental and emotional health, we assume the baseline is normal. It's simply not true. So we want to start bringing some attention to that.
No, I love that. And it seems the church as a whole has kind of shied away from this topic, you know, and I know even for us, I think this has kind of been on the docket, a series that's been on the docket for us for a while. We've talked about, we've kind of, are we ready to kind of dive into this?
And how do we dive into it? Where do we dive into it? There's so much to dive into.
Exactly. So I guess briefly share for us as a church why we feel like it's time to kind of dive into that. And kind of open this can of worms and really start to talk about mental health, mental illness, things like that. But then also how, as a Christian, how our faith plays into that a little bit.
So it's really interesting. I would say that it's probably not now that we just decided to. We've been thinking about it for a while. And I think, truthfully, part of the reason why it's been a little bit of a delayed deal in us actually doing a series on it is probably the reason that a lot of churches in general, or a lot of just times in Christianity, it's difficult to talk about because one is there's so much to talk about. I mean, there's so much to talk about when it comes to even each individual component of mental illness, let alone mental and emotional health as a whole. I think in addition to that, it can be really difficult to know, what of this is a spiritual component What if this is a thing to pray about? And I think oftentimes what happens is if you think about it, emotional and mental health is a very, very, very complex thing.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about this some on Sunday, but to kind of give you a little preview, oftentimes we give a spiritual answer to a complex, multifaceted problem. Okay. So our mental and emotional health is the compilation of a number of different things, just to name a few. It is spirituality. It is our mental health. Sometimes it's our context. Sometimes it's our genetics. Sometimes it's our experiences. There's physical components to it. I mean, there's so many different components that create who we are.
Yeah.
I think sometimes as a church, we've been tempted to give simplistic answers, or there's so many things to talk about and tackle. It's just really difficult to have any kind of answer. So I think we're not going to answer all the questions in this series. But what we are hoping to do is to give some bumper lanes, some ideas of here's kind of how to start to think about navigating this as a Christian.
I love that. Yeah, that's going to be awesome. Which is why during this series we want to do a podcast, and we're going to be, kind of bringing back the Asking for a Friend midweek podcast. So during the middle of each week during the series, we're going to be answering some questions. So you guys can email your questions into info@dcctally.com, or you can send us a message on Instagram, DCC Tally.
Yeah. So one thing, I just got to plug this real quick, because this is probably the thing I'm most excited about of the whole series. In the Asking for a Friend podcast, I have talked into / conned my wife into being a part of it. And if you don't know Lindsay or have never had the honor of meeting her, what you may or may not know is that she is a therapist. She's got multiple master's degrees. She's got more letters behind her last name than our last name is long, and our last name is not short.
Yeah.
She is definitively the educated one of our family. And so she's agreed to come on and be part of the conversation from more of a person who has spent thousands of hours literally having oversight to help her to become on top of her years of study and things like that.
Exactly.
She's a therapist at the counseling department, the University Counseling Center at Florida State. So she's going to come and be part of the conversation. So I'm excited to hear some things that she has to say and to hear from somebody who actually knows what the heck they're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. So we're excited to have Lindsay join us, answer some questions, kind of help lead and guide the discussion as we kind of do this podcast. So this Sunday we'll be starting Change My Mind. Really excited. Hope to see you guys there, 8:15, 9:30, and 11. And again, man, how we as Christians can interface with mental health, emotional health, mental illness, and how that impacts our spiritual well-being. We're really excited to dig into this and looking forward to it.
Absolutely. It will be hopefully one of the most helpful series that we do. That's our goal, is for this entire thing not to just be, here's what we think, but we want this to actually be helpful as you are navigating life, as you are navigating the rest of your life, as you will someday, if you don't already have kids, and you will help to navigate their spiritual, emotional, and mental well-being as well. So looking forward to it. Looking forward to Sunday.
Yep. Fantastic. All right. See you guys later.